Well, it's that time again, that time when we wade through the swamp of Idaho politics to enter our favorite virtual oasis and discuss what we've seen. I'm joined by Greg and Ken, and I'm your host, Chris, and this is Three Pastors. Welcome to a bar. It is now time for the new best segment of the show, hands down. The disclaimer. Go, Ken, go.
Vote with your comments. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the respective speakers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, policies, or doctrines of Athol Baptist Church.
That's kind of scary. It's just the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're going to say is not necessarily.
But you might read something. You know, you might read one of these bills, and then all of a sudden, you know, somebody's like, do you guys support that? That's kind of what happened.
Oh, we're going to read some bills.
Yeah. So, you know, it's like if you read anything, then apparently it is tantamount to you supporting it. So, you know.
Well, we could express a contrary view, just a debate, right?
Yeah, and that's a possibility as well.
Richard's not here.
That's okay.
People taking things out of context and sound bites and just caught 15 seconds of somebody saying something. And
people are just generally entirely too sensitive about stuff. You know, this kind of thing, you know, you need to be able to have a civil discussion about it, even if you choose to disagree with it, or even if you choose to play devil's advocate. You got to have a civil discussion about it, or you won't ever arrive at any truth. It's just an echo chamber, which is kind of what happens on the extreme sides of both parts of the body politic. You know, it's like if you have a discussion that is even slightly contrary to the most extreme view, then you get automatically plunged to the opposite side. You know, it's like you get kicked to the other side.
Pendulum swings.
And everybody that's in the middle just trying to have a conversation, it's like you become the targets of these kind of extreme ends of the political spectrum. On both ends of it, it just gets really kind of ridiculous. But, you know, hopefully people will understand that the endeavor here today is just to give you an overview of all of the material that is being presented by our legislatures in Boise, and going to be voted through or sent to the desk of the governor.
Yep.
So that he can dismiss anything that is not liberal enough for him.
That is his.
But don't read anything into
policy.
That. We don't mean
doctrine.
anything by that.
Yeah. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast
are not necessarily those of the Idaho legislature. Oh, wait, they are.
They are. Yeah, they made these up. Yeah, they're to blame. So your elected Idaho representatives and senators convened in Boise on January 8th for the 2024 session. They are expected to continue until at least March 22, before returning home for the rest of the year. So they got this period of time where they're going to be meeting, and they're going to be passing a plethora of bills. They prepared 401 bills to be considered this session.
So far,
which is over 50 more bills than the previous record session in 2021. Bills and resolutions and their status to become law can be found in the Idaho Legislature website, and we'll provide a link for that if you'd like to find that. Also, if you have an opinion about these potential new laws in the state of Idaho, now's the time to get the facts and share your concerns. So this link can also provide you with that as well. And a webpage where you can find your legislature's name and contact information. So I would recommend, go through and read these for yourself. I perused most of these. And thankfully Ken went through and kind of itemized them for us, because they are not topically itemized like this on the list of bills. So it would have been really kind of a pain to sort through. But Ken did all that work for us. And so we'll be able to kind of give you some of the bills that kind of are categorized by topic.
Yeah.
More or less.
There are, we're only going to look at, I don't know, what do we got here? 50 or so possible subjects to discuss out of the over 400 bills. And there are a lot of them that are just really benign. Appropriations bills, minutia details about language in statutes or contracts and stuff that aren't really worth a whole lot of conversation. But these seem like the ones that I would assume would be on the minds and hearts of Idahoans.
I don't know. Ski patrol volunteer liability seems like a pretty important one. H0408. I mean, that seems like a hot
ski patrol. That's a big deal to you.
That seems like a hot button issue to most of the people in our community.
That one should have been under humorous.
Did you guys, Greg, you and Adriana probably have been sitting around your house discussing the state of ski patrol rescue liability for volunteers?
Well, yeah. I mean, I would hope that every household in Idaho would take an interest in, whether or not the ski patrol is being covered.
It's funny because that's kind of one of those things where that's like a bill that is so relative to such a small genre of people that, we can look at it. We're like, oh, that's kind of cute. But actually to those ski patrol volunteers, that's like, that's a really big deal, liability, because you could get hurt doing ski patrol.
I know a ski patrol person that did get hurt.
So, well, not only them, but the people they're trying to help. This is probably to protect them from turning around being sued.
Yeah.
You misdiagnosed this, or you complicated my fracture, or
you ran over my face with your ski.
Yeah.
Trying to save me.
You didn't helivac me out.
Yeah. I wanted to ride in a helicopter. That's why I faked this fall.
There's one for midwifery licensor. That's pretty cool. Grain bin equipment. Like some of this stuff, you just look at it and you're like, what in the world is this? It's just amazing how
there
much.
Are even some duplications where the same issue is in separate bills, either both in the House or one in the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
And I assume that those would get sent to a committee to reconcile the two into a single bill.
Right.
Like children's device protection, Senate 1222 and 1253.
So, between all the House bills and the Senate bills being introduced, I mean, there's just a truckload of stuff here. It's bonkers, man. It really is. There's so much.
Well, kind of hats off to our legislators. I mean, they've been busy working up these bills and trying to get support. This could ostensibly be the most active legislator in this state's history in terms of numbers of bills and time that they're spending down in Boise debating and lobbying for these things. So, and some of these issues, they've been going on ever since COVID and before.
Yeah.
So they are following through on a lot of things that are very important to Idahoans.
Yeah. We here in our district, we're really blessed to have some great representatives and senators. It's that link that we provide to you in the link description below will bring you to the page where you can access all of these bills, and they have them each hyperlinked. And then you can go to the full bill information. So any one of them that you want to research or read, you probably should. A lot of it is, I noticed that a lot of it is just adding to or subtracting from current bills, changing the language a little bit, altering the language. slightly so that it kind of fits into a better kind of, I don't know, framework, I guess, or at least the language is better legally speaking.
Yeah, and I think that's important to understand because sometimes we see bills become law that we don't necessarily agree with all the details of it. That maybe the intent is good, but the execution is kind of wonky.
Yeah.
These can get modified over time, and so that's what happens a lot of the times with these bills is they're going in and improving on what they've passed in the past.
Right. So some of the ones that we want to highlight are just some of the ones that we feel like they look like more moral issues, things that are relevant to a larger swath of people, perhaps. And so just of the hundreds of bills that are being worked on, some of the ones that we thought were very interesting was some of the ones pertaining to abortion. So there were about 4. There's 3 House bills and 1 Senate bill being proposed that are related to the abortion bill that's already in place. Most of these, I was noticing, were basically just changing the language. So like H381 was just changing embryo in the language to preborn child, which is an important distinction because one of the arguments is that it's not a life, it's an embryo. So you change it to preborn child, and so now it's an actual child. That language is pretty important. So I thought that one was pretty good. And then H476 was about the prohibition of allowing, I think it was public schools, or entities that promote abortion to come into schools to teach pro-abortion curriculum. In fact, let me see if I can find it real quick. It was the section 4 of that bill was a change from the original one. Or is this a new bill? This might be a new bill altogether. Maybe not. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell from the way that these are constructed. But in any case, the highlighted information is the section 4 part where it says no public school district shall allow any individual or organization that is a provider of abortion as defined in section 18604 Idaho Code to furnish any materials or instruction related to sex education curricula, which is a big deal.
Yeah. In other words, keep Planned Parenthood out of the school trying to teach sex ed.
Yep. Or anybody who is a provider of abortion. So it could be even a doctor because it says individuals. And Lord knows our children already have enough people trying to get in, teaching them about different sexualities and all kinds of other stuff. So, yeah, let's try and get something through to keep schools to the basics. Let's just teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. Let's try that. And then, if we can get that correct for a little while, maybe expand into something else. But our schools aren't in a condition to be seeking to teach a lot of other miscellaneous stuff. They can't even get the academics right. We're pretty blessed here in our community, have one of the higher ranked schools in the state of Idaho in Timberlake High School. But still in all, nationally, it kind of, we're just not doing well in academics. So it seems to me like we should quit worrying about all this kind of ancillary stuff and just let's make sure that our kids can read, write, and do math.
Yeah.
That might be a good idea.
They go back
for the
to
future.
The basics. Yes.
Perhaps we don't need home ec, or, the other
I
miscellaneous.
liked home ec. Never took it, but I liked it.
I never really thought of home ec. Never really thought about home ec, actually, until recently when I started thinking about the rise of the nuclear family. And why would you need to teach in school someone how to cook or sew or do basic like homemaker type skills? Why would you need to do that? Well, because you took the mom out of the home to send her to work so that you could have a 2-income household. So mom was no longer teaching the children how to do those things. And so the school had to become mom.
It started the takeover.
Yeah.
The part that bugs me
50s.
is it's such a misnomer that most of those classes don't really teach about home economics. They teach homemaking skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what about how to buy a home, how to finance a home, how to balance a checkbook?
Yeah.
What does a budget look like? How do you provide for education? All these things that kids are getting out of school now and haven't got a clue and then fumble with in real life. But, I can make a great brownie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get the big rocks in here.
I don't even remember my home economics class in high school. I don't even remember being in it.
I was never in it, but I remember making fun of the guys that did go into it.
Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I didn't take it.
Yeah, it was mostly, it was 99%.
It was an elective,
girls.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was an elective in Florida, too.
Yeah.
And well, to Idaho's credit, now graduating seniors have to have, 8 or 16 hours worth of true home economics curriculum. How to open a checking account, balance a checkbook, pay your bills.
16 hours, huh?
Something like that. It's not a lot, but it's at least something.
Same amount of time doctors spend in college learning how to teach people to eat healthy.
Yeah. Compassionate bedside manner.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
It seems like a lot of stuff is kind of designed to discourage communal families from making a home for their entire family.
Mm-hmm.
Like even zoning things, like even the rule about the 10 acres thing. To get my mom a house built on my property, I had to have a special kind of deal so that I could have a mother-in-law house attached to it. And I could only have 2 septics on my property because that's all that the code in Kootenai County will allow you to have. So if I wanted to build another house for one of my kids on my 10 acres of property, I couldn't do it because I would have to attach them to the septic tank that I already have or build a new septic tank. Which is something, that you could do, I guess. You could attach it to the septic if they would ever allow you to do that. But it seems like everything is designed in such a way to kind of stymie the promotion of the larger family above the nuclear family. Mm-hmm. It's like everything's designed for the focus of the nuclear family. And unfortunately, it's the nuclear family is kind of, in a way, it's kind of killing families that need to be larger, and like in a society today where people feel like they need 2 incomes. People are more inclined to just go to work and send their kids to public school and, let that be that, which I think is a terrible shame. Yeah. How much are we missing out on? And you're leaving your kids to be educated by people who don't hold to your ideals and could care less about your ideals. In fact, probably think that your ideals are tantamount to violence. So it just seems like everything is working against the family in today's society, even in the small things that we don't even think about. So it's kind of good to see bills like this coming along. At least are saying, we don't want you to teach our kids about abortion in schools. We'll let the parents do that. Yeah. Which I did see in here somewhere along the way that there were some parental right or parental choice kind of laws that were being considered.
Did you read the synopsis of that one?
Which one?
The 476 says amends existing law to prohibit abortion providers from furnishing materials or instruction relating to sex education curricula. That's big. That's going to be fought tooth and nail.
Yeah, yeah. And, Planned Parenthood would be one of those groups that would come in and want to teach you about gender ideology too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So, it's a net good. It's a net good. And then the other one was another one related to preborn children. What was that one? It was
400.
400.
HO 400.
You got to flip through this giant list of stuff. Yeah, so House Bill 400, which looks like it's amending.
So that's the terminology.
Yeah, it's like these bills are just like, they're so giant. It's the language in them is just so, it's a lot. It's a lot. And if you don't have like someone to kind of help you walk through it, at some point we'll probably have our representatives come in and help us walk through some of the ones that actually got through. But this looks like it's taking everything that's fetus and changing it to preborn child, as the other one was taking everything that was embryo and changing it to unborn child.
Yeah, once you click onto a bills page, the description of the bill, read the summary at the bottom of that page, which is kind of distills it down to the fewest possible words. If that doesn't make sense, you want more information, click on the statement of purpose. That will open up another page, and that kind of expands on that a little bit in some cases. In some cases, it doesn't. And if that's not enough information, then you have to open up the full bill text, which in this case is how many pages? 25 pages.
It's a lot. And all the changes, you have to kind of go in and look. All the changes, you'll see them kind of marked out, and then the change will be next to it, underlined, so that you can tell what's being done. And then the Senate is introducing one for abortion exceptions, and that is Senate Bill 1229. And basically the synopsis of that one. Let me get to it because I got to get to the bill statement. This legislation, let's see, disallow the affirmative defense to the felony of criminal abortion in the case of incest or rape.
That one took me a few minutes to figure out exactly what that means.
Yeah, so what are they driving at here, Ken? So they're disallowing.
They're basically, as I understand it, they're removing it as being a criminal offense to conduct an abortion in the case of incest or rape. So if you are a victim of incest or rape, it's no longer a criminal offense for someone to perform an abortion on you. Yeah,
that's what they're asking for.
Right.
I'd like to get Scott Herndon's take on that.
Right.
See what he thinks.
Abolitionists won't like that.
Yeah, that they won't like that language at all. Of course, that's coming from the Senate, so probably going to see quite a few more kind of liberal leaning. I hesitate to use the word liberal because I'm thinking of liberal in the classical sense, but probably more liberal leaning kind of ideologies coming from the Senate, I would imagine. So anyways, there's some things coming up through abortion that seems to be kind of changing the way that we look at those things. I was surprised that I didn't see something more dealing with the legality or the language of the bill as it relates to the mother facing imminent death.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that was a topic of concern, although I think Scott had said that it's already written into the bill that is allowable, but I'm not completely sure about that. I'd have to read through it once more. I forget.
That's kind of the traditional position of law on abortion.
Yeah,
it saves the mother's life.
Yeah,
without it.
You would think if there was an issue with that the Senate would have presented something that would have extended the exception to that as well, as opposed to just for rape or incest. which I'm not necessarily in agreement with the idea of abortion in the case of rape or incest at all. I've never been of the opinion that a child should have to pay for the crimes of some guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a life, and as unfortunate as it is, that life deserves to live. So it's rough, it's difficult, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two lives involved there, not just one, and it is unfortunate. But it's never easy to talk about abortion, in particular with the instances like that, because it seems cruel to think that if a person is raped and then they get impregnated, that you should just carry out the abortion anyways. It seems cruel.
Thankfully, it's rare.
Yeah, extremely rare. But still in all, it's like who, if you don't speak for the voice of the unborn child, then they can't speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. So somebody has to do it to inject them into the conversation at all, because they're not going to do it themselves. Yeah. So it is really, truly a silent victim in all of this. Mm-hmm. So somebody has to speak for it.
It seems it comes down to the mother. She was raped. Whether she knew the rapist or not, she's, that's a long time to deal with a violent crime.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to raise the child.
No.
You could put the child up for abortion.
Yeah.
And
abortion? How about adoption?
I mean, adoption. You could put the child up for adoption. Or, you could choose to raise the child. I would never underestimate the power of motherhood and its ability to adapt with love towards a child. But still in all,
well,
it's not the child's fault that someone raped someone else.
But what I'm saying is that mother has to deal with that. I'm just thinking to myself, that's a lot of emotional stress.
Yeah.
During a pregnancy.
Yeah.
You got enough problems if you're happy that you're going to have a kid.
Yeah. One of the things you could do was you could create more support for the mother after the fact, like when she's had the child.
Yeah. And I would suspect that, any of our local clinics would have that type of counseling available, to help them out. Open arms here that we support. You could probably go in there and get the type of help, or they could get you to the right people to get the help you need to, psychologically deal with this pregnancy.
Yeah, yeah. What's weird is that a lot of abolitionists would say that you're only helping the issue when you are like offering support for women instead of just abolishing it, which I find very strange. It's like if it's going to be a thing, you should offer support. It's not like you can stop it. Right? I mean, you'd have to have a bill to stop it from happening. And in the case of rape and incest, it seems like the Senate has an appetite at least to push forward a bill that's going to release doctors from being criminally charged. Mm-hmm. So it seems like it's only expanding in that direction. So it seems to me like one of the things churches could do would be more proactive in helping girls to make a decision to keep the child, as opposed to, just saying, well, how dare you, It's like, well, let's try and help out while we can.
Yeah.
Until something comes along in the future, perhaps, right? So anyways, there's a lot there for abortion. And then there's a whole bunch of them for children. And I'll just read through all of this kind of short list. And then if you guys want to pick one out to talk to, we certainly can.
Yeah. Call in and let us know.
Yeah. Sex crimes, children, sex crimes as it relates to children and computers. H384 is harmful materials in libraries. I want to look at that one.
That's a big one. We've been
that would be the
dealing with that.
related to the one that we talked about with Sheriff Bob Norris?
Yeah, H380.
There's that one, and also Senate 1289.
1289 is the
Senate counterpart.
the Libraries Harmful Materials Act. Amends and adds to existing law to prohibit certain materials from being promoted, given, or made available to a minor by a school or public library, to provide a cause of action, to provide for damages, and to provide for injunctive relief. So basically making it equal to the bill that already exists for the distribution of something that could be considered pornographic or explicit to minors in a library or school. Because as it stands, a librarian or a school librarian could hand a book with pornographic material or explicit material to a child and face no repercussions at all.
Mm-hmm. But a man on the street doing that gets in trouble.
Yep. And I think this says this doesn't prohibit it from being made available in public libraries. It just makes it prohibits them from making it available to a minor by a school or public library. So basically, a library could have a section where adults could access it, and it would have that material in it. If you wanted your child to have that material, you could go and get that material and hand it to your child. And so, I think that that's a pretty fair compromise myself, but that's not really what they want, right? They don't want to compromise. They want to have unfettered access to your children, to indoctrinate them into gender ideology.
Any content, any age.
Yep.
Unsupervised.
Yep. That's exactly what they want. And some of the stuff that one that Sheriff Norris brought in that was available to minor children was just abysmal. Just porn. It really was just porn. I mean, instructing a girl on how to do oral sex. Like, really? Why is that being given to a minor? What? It doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't.
So anyways, that one's a good one. What?
Well, I was just, you kind of caught us all, we were like dumbfounded by that.
Yeah.
Every time we talk about it, I just like, oh my gosh, what is going on in our society? Why do we even have to be discussing this? We've come that far.
Yeah.
And, we talk about the dissolution of the family and pornography right now, the rampant amount of pornography out there. And this is an agenda that we've known for 50 years, and we're still combating it. And I don't know. I just want to throw my hands up in the air and go screaming down the hall,
Yeah, I mean, are you saying that pornography in general is an agenda? Or just
it's part of an agenda to destroy the family and to create a state-run world. The society in general, it seems, and this is, we're combating right now. We're combating the media because it's telling us one thing, and most people, it seems like, will believe whatever the media is telling you today.
Right.
And so they're just going along with it.
Right.
And what we end up with is a society that is being, and this isn't, everybody knows this, is being controlled by the media, which is controlled by, 5 of the largest corporations in the world. And here we sit in our little room in our church, and I get a little, frustrated and dizzy just thinking about it. And the only thing I can hang on to is, what Chris says. Our job doesn't change.
Yeah.
We got to preach the gospel. We got to go out one person at a time. But at the same time, it seems like we're rolling a big rock uphill in doing that.
I hesitate to I agree with you in some areas. I disagree with that in some areas. I don't view pornography as an overarching kind of agenda by any one group. I think pornography is driven by money and power. I think it's just, and I don't know for sure that there's any one group that is really focusing on making that a thing. Pornography is a giant industry with a lot of businesses and a lot of groups and a lot of organizations. Whereas something like the LGBTQ movement is definitely an agenda. It's a group of individuals united by an ideal to target individuals. And the individuals that they're targeting are children and teens. That's the people that they're targeting. And, when you look at, like, I was just listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he was on with Aaron Rodgers. Did you guys see that interview? It's pretty good. But Joe Rogan got onto this kind of tangent about the number of gender-affirming clinics that are in existence now, as opposed to, when did he say it was like early 2000s compared to today. And early 2000s, there was like 2 in the entire country. Now there's like 2 in every state. They're just everywhere now. And it's a multi-billion-dollar business. It's like he said he knew this guy who is a doctor that knows a cosmetic surgeon that has switched over to only doing gender-affirming care, and one gender transition for a male to a female was like $70,000, and he says he does 4 or 5 of those a week.
He's rich.
4 or 5 a week. He's doing. That's 4 or 5 people every week that he's doing. That's over 200 people a year.
Well, what does that come out to? $1 million a month?
It's a lot. It's a lot. And you think about all those clinics have multiple doctors that are doing the same thing.
And it's usually not just one surgery.
Yeah, it's
series
multiple.
It's a series of surgeries. Yeah. I think the whole thing was like $70,000 total.
The whole package.
The whole package.
Oh.
There's no coming back. And these kids are being targeted. It's like up like 30%. Like kids recognizing as being having some type of a gender dysphoria or gender, question,
which is
questioning.
Normal. It's been proven to be normal. A good but most don't act on it.
But the diagnostics were so much lower then. It's increased exponentially because it's constantly being bombarded at these kids.
Right.
I mean, just watch Libs of TikTok for like a day, and you'll see all the educators that are LGBTQ positive that are just so excited to be able to go in and teach their little children on how to address them as their pronouns. It's such a obnoxious power trip.
Well, the crazy one I saw the other day was they're now claiming that preborns in the womb know what sex they are, regardless of their DNA. That they're forming their gender identity in the womb, actually. How crazy is that?
I don't even know what to say to that.
I'm staring at Ken like he's crazy.
So it's kind of like
it really is like you got 4 eyes right now, because I'm just looking at you like, what?
You're not making this
that
up,
can't
right?
be a thing.
No, I'm not. But it's like if you get into the argument of when is a child old enough to make this decision for themselves, if you want to just obliterate that argument, there is no age you attain.
Yeah,
it just starts at the beginning. You just
know it at the very beginning.
But then that argument plays against them in terms of abortion. When is it a child? Yeah. It's old enough to determine its gender, but it's not old enough to be born.
It's almost like offering the choice of, if you want to take that argument, we'll give you abortion, but you have to accept gender ideology.
Right.
It's almost like it's turning into a gambit for everyone.
That's a problem with a lot of these ideologies. They contradict themselves on multiple levels.
Oh yeah,
they're so inconsistent.
Oh yeah,
and of course, it all boils down to pornography.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
You should show the child pornography in the womb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're supposed to read to them, so I guess maybe what you're reading to them
nuts.
Yeah, it really is. There is definitely an agenda by the LGBTQ movement to indoctrinate children and teens into accepting the fact that any dysphoria that they may have is just them understanding that their true gender is something else, when in fact there's no such thing as multiple genders at all. That nobody has made an argument for the scientific evidence that there are more than two genders. In fact, every bit of scientific evidence that is not anecdotal will tell you that there are only two genders, period.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what you look at, by what metric. It's like one of the best arguments I ever heard was that doctor who was on, I think it was Dr. Phil, and he was debating with some activists, and they got on this kick about, well, no, there's a difference between sex and gender. He's like, no, there's not. He said, yes, there is. And then they asked him, it's like, well, he asked him, he says, what is a woman? Right? What is a man? And
Stop her.
They said, I don't know. What is a man to you? He says, if you're a man, you have XY chromosome. If you're a woman, you have an XX chromosome. That's
Enough said.
That's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, why are we looking at just the science of it? Which is just such a contradiction from where we were at COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, well, believe the science. Nah, don't believe the science. Don't believe the science. It's more emotional than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the thing, right? With that kind of extremist kind of left ideology, it's like, let's just keep moving the goalposts.
Yeah.
We just got to keep moving the goalposts so that we never achieve anything. Because if you leave it stationary for too long, then data and facts just overwhelm you. You can't withstand it. So you just got to keep moving it around.
Somebody's going to get excluded, and we don't want that.
No, definitely don't want that.
Unless it's a right winger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exclude them. Speaking of goalposts, who won?
Oh, the Chiefs did. Yeah,
Really?
The Chiefs ended up pulling it out at the end in overtime. Only the second overtime Super Bowl ever.
Yeah. I was listening to it on the radio coming home from our small group, and they broke 2 field goal records.
Yep. There were 2 field goal records broke, and this is the only the second team in history to win 2 back-to-back Super Bowls.
What?
Yep,
Really?
The Chiefs won last year too. Yeah.
Wow. Like that.
So
Somebody.
they're apparently the new dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they need it. Yeah. When are they going to change their name?
They got a great team. It's really irritating to me when, not to get off on a football tangent.
We are off. It's too late.
But
I'm sorry.
Not to get off on that too far, but it irritates me when people look at people like Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce, and they're just like, oh, these guys are superstars, amazing, blah 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 blah, And then you find out after the team kind of deteriorates a little bit, because what happens naturally is once you get to 2 Super Bowls, or you've made it to 2 Super Bowls in a row, the price of your players gets so high that you can't keep them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to start making choices about who you keep and who you don't. And then your team begins to deteriorate. This is what happened in Seattle. Happens to every team.
Mm-hmm.
And so, once that team starts to deteriorate, you begin to see just how superstar these guys really were when they're not surrounded by the guys that they were surrounded by. You get the magic sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that begins to deteriorate away and the magic sauce goes away, you find out that they were above average players. They weren't like the superstars that you made them out to be. A superstar when he's by himself better than everybody else on the team. Like Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. They were a average team, and then you include Tom Brady and what's the tight end's name? Gronk. You had him and Gronk, and then all of a sudden they're in a Super Bowl. That says something.
Yep.
So
a couple other of these bills to bring us back on track a little bit in the area of children that were kind of interesting to me was Senate 1272, the Safe Haven Act. This one's kind of sad, but has a hopeful side to it. This is the one
It's
where
1272.
where it makes provision for installing safe haven devices in like fire departments or hospitals to receive unwanted children anonymously, newborns.
Yeah, it's sad, but
It's saving a life.
it's sad, but
Potentially.
it's a true necessity. If you're going to be a society that says no, you cannot abort a child, then you have to make a mechanism by which you can receive those children that are unwanted, so that you can save those lives.
Yeah.
That's just the sad truth of it.
The other one, you guys will probably like this. Maybe we can get Ethan's idea on this, is Senate 1288. This one would allow chiropractors to do your physical exam for sports instead of a doctor. How do you feel about that?
It's not on here.
It is. It's 1288.
1288. I don't see it.
It's right there. Amends existing law to permit certain qualified chiropractors to evaluate and authorize return to play for youth athletes who are suspected of having sustained a concussion during school athletic activities. First of all, I don't believe in chiropractors. I think that it is a practice that borders on the metaphysical. In fact, I had a good friend of mine die because of the mistreatment of a chiropractor. But that being said, if you are properly trained in the identification and diagnosis of concussion and you have a way to do that, I don't really have a problem with them signing off on concussion protocols. I mean, as long as they have the proper training. Doesn't matter if they're a chiropractor. I don't care if they're a chiropractor. I mean, I don't really care if they're a naturopath, really. You know, whoever, as long as they have the proper training and they do the job properly and they're regulated, I don't have a problem with that.
But is any of that in place now?
No.
Standards of care and regulation for concussion protocol.
For doctors?
For doctors,
to release your physicals? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that, you know, they could lose their license.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if there would have to be some kind of there would have to be some kind of regulation involved.
Yeah.
There would be a consequence for not doing it properly.
And see how they're packaging this, but it just seemed like it was kind of a gray area opening up there.
Yeah, it's a pretty large bill. It basically says that a person with a chiropractic physician licensed, Chapter 7, Title 54, Idaho Code, who has successfully completed a state board of chiropractic physicians approved concussion management education program, that includes training in all of the following. And then it goes through the list of all the different types of injuries that they would be looking for.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty reasonable.
And so it seems like there's some education involved. It sounds like there's some licensing that is involved. So if you didn't do it properly, you might lose your chiropractic license. So
doesn't it appear they're just adding to that? I mean, I would suspect that there's going to be doctors or EMTs or somebody on hand, even at a high school football game.
Well, this is just about your physical, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think it's the return to play.
Return to play evaluation.
So, yeah, they're on the field.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And one of the summary here amends existing law. So there is a law out there that says, you know, you need somebody to say you're okay, you can go back and play. And you see that in all the movies, you know, even in high school games. Is he ready to play? Yeah, he can go. And it's like they're adding this is really ambiguous, permit certain qualified chiropractors to evaluate and authorize return to play for youth athletes.
Well, and probably by that they mean that they have to be licensed.
Right.
That you can't just be a person that says, "Hey, I'm a chiropractor."
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to have gone through the state board of chiropractic physicians approved concussion management.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm saying, certain qualified, you know, that who is that? You know, it's not defined. It might be deep in the bill.
Yeah, it just says it. Yeah. Are you looking at the bill or are you looking at the
summary.
synopsis? Yeah.
The summary.
The summary's not going to give you what it is. The bill says a chiropractic physician licensed under Chapter 7, Title 54, Idaho Code, who has successfully completed a state board of chiropractic physician-approved concussion management education program that includes training in all of the following. So it's very specific.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to have those things in order to do that. Now, so, I mean, as long as you've had the training, to return to play, I don't have an issue with that. There's some accountability there with the licensing. So, I don't have a problem with that. Do I have a problem with chiropractic in general? Yes. But do I have a problem with a person that has a license and has been trained to see if a kid can go back to playing in a game? No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. And it doesn't exclude them from any kind of liability or anything. So,
yeah. So another one that we talked about with Bob Norris was this House 406 concerning fentanyl trafficking. So this is the one that he was supportive of.
Yeah, that's the House Bill 406.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that was going to add the code for the fentanyl trafficking, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Wow, the synopsis for that one is huge. Introduce. No, that's just the rules as they were put through. Adds an existing law to provide for the crimes of trafficking in fentanyl and drug-induced homicide, as it relates to fentanyl, I guess.
So that should help that problem a little bit.
If it goes through. I can't imagine.
Passes, yeah.
I can't imagine a reason why it wouldn't go through. But yeah.
Now another interesting.
What is the Child Device Protection Act?
Yeah, that I was kind of looking at that one too.
Well, what's a child protection device? What is that? Senate Bill 122 and 153. I just want to look at it real quick, see what it is. Senate Bill 1222. Gosh, there's so many bills.
401.
Adds to existing law to establish provision requiring certain internet filters on computer devices used by children. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, but is it specific to schools, libraries?
I don't know. Let's see.
Homes. Sounds like a
relating to children's devices protection. Require internet filtering on certain devices to establish provision. Provide for Attorney General proceedings. Yeah, the bill's going to be really hard. There's the statement of purpose. The proposed legislation seeks to fulfill the government's compelling interest in protecting children from exposure to harmful materials online, from being groomed by the use of material into sexual exploitation, abuse, and sex trafficking, while not overburdening free speech. This is accomplished by requiring manufacturers of smartphones and tablets to enable existing filters for Idaho's children. The filters are already there but defaulted to off. This legislation simply asks manufacturers to turn them only for children. Turn them on only for children. This legislation recognizes the serious harm that comes to children. So basically, it's a law that tells manufacturers that are selling smartphones, tablets, computers to turn their filters to on as a default.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that.
Nope.
Seems like a small thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you want that stuff, turn it on.
If you don't, you can turn it off for your kids.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could make the argument the other way around too, but whatever.
Yeah.
That would really be applicable though in situations where you may not have a vested interest in making sure that it was turned off or turned on, like in a school library or something like that. Or if like a teacher bought some tablet, or if a school bought some tablets for their kids, making sure that they are already established as the default is child protection from the very beginning.
Yeah, they use tablets extensively over at Athol Elementary.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Some of those kids know how to work them.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, you bet they do. You bet they do.
Another interesting thing in some of these bills is, for example, House 407 under elections, the Fair Elections Act. The legislature has adopted this whole terminology now, synthetic media.
Yeah, what is that? I saw that earlier.
That's AI.
That's AI,
Just
huh?
like we were talking about in a couple episodes ago.
Nice.
So this is providing
Synthetic.
protections against AI-generated electioneering, essentially, deep fake ads, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
there's also bills in here around pornography that uses AI and deep faking. So just what we've been talking about,
It's here.
we're now having to start to provide protections against it.
Interesting. That's House Bill 407.
You know, I've seen a few ads that I'm looking at it and I'm going, why is that so weird?
Mm-hmm.
And then it hits me. This guy's an AI.
Yeah.
You know, he's not.
Yep.
He's not real. And so they haven't quite refined it. Well, at least in
There's
in
a drug
couple of
ad.
things.
There's a drug ad out right now that you probably see repeatedly that we've seen. It's about alopecia, and they basically make AI versions of these people that are in the ad in reality, but then show them with like half of their hair missing from alopecia, and they look at you, and it's just this weird,
Like the lights aren't on.
Then,
Yeah.
What's
Look
alopecia?
in their face. It's where you are
You lose your
missing
hair.
the. Yeah,
I have
You can-
it.
you can be missing the pigments in your skin, so you have blotchy skin, kind of like Michael
Mhm.
Jackson thing. But it also affects hair, and so you have big blotches of
It's
hair
what-
fall out.
It's what Jada Pinkett Smith has.
Mm.
Yeah, she has alopecia. Yeah, so that's the House Bill 407 is for elections, and then you said there was one for
Let's see, where's the other?
it was
that one
explicit synthetic material. So
Yeah, House
H391,
What's that under?
House Bill
Pornography.
391. It's under
Yeah.
pornography.
Pornography.
Adds the existing law to provide for the crime of disclosing explicit synthetic material. What does that mean?
I think it's probably trying to close the loophole that since these are not real actors, it's not real pornography.
It's a cartoon.
What is a person?
It is a highly sophisticated
Yes.
cartoon, isn't it? Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not sure if that's required,
Little old Idaho's getting pretty sophisticated.
but whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem with that. Let's see. It's relating to explicit synthetic material. Disclosing explicit synthetic media. A person is guilty of disclosing explicit synthetic material or media when the person discloses explicit synthetic media with the intent to annoy, terrify, threaten, intimidate, harass, offend, humiliate, or degrade, or the person possesses and threatens to disclose explicit synthetic media with the intent to obtain money or other valuable consideration, except as described in subsections. It sounds to me like it's more related to like extortion,
Mm-hmm.
like a person taking a person's image and then making it into a pornographic image and saying, we're going to release this unless you give us X amount of dollars. Sounds like it's more related to that. It might extend more than that. I don't know, but that was just like just a quick reading of that. It's,
Yeah.
you ever think you'd see the day where you were reading bills being passed about artificial intelligence generated videos?
Weird. I looked it up just the way it was written there, and there's a public service announcement, June 5th, 2023. Malicious actors manipulating photos and videos to create explicit content and sextortion crimes. The FBI is warning the public of malicious actors creating this content by manipulating benign photographs or videos to target victims.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it's been almost 2 years now, or a year, that this has been hitting the market.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be darned.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Don't blink, guys.
So
We'll
let's
miss
see some of the other voter stuff. Office of Election Crime Security. I guess there's an expansion of that. Voter guides. What's that all about?
I think that one basically just mandates that the state produce voter guides, which I don't believe they have up to this point. You know, political action committees and parties have done it, but I think this does kind of like the state of Washington produces a neutral voter guide.
Yeah.
So I think this is just kind
That's
of bringing
exactly what it
Idaho
is.
into a line.
Adds existing law require the Secretary of State to prepare voter guides to distribute to each county clerk 30 days before election.
So that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Depends on how they're done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a voter guide can be, it's like, and depends on how it's listed. Is it listed in random order? Is it listed by preference? Or, who gets to be first? Is it alphabetical? Like it depends on how that's done. There's 4 of them that are related to gender and racial ideology. So there's House Bill 421, which is changing, or what is this? Let's see. Amends the existing law to define terms and to revise definitions regarding sex and gender. Did you read into that?
I read a little bit of it, yeah.
Yeah, so provide a legal definition for male and female and related terms and providing consistency across the table or across the state statute. So I'm guessing what they're doing is they're saying basically that gender and sex are the same thing.
And I'm looking at Senate 1237, amends existing law to provide that freedom from discrimination because of sexual orientation or gender identity is a civil right.
Wait.
Freedom from discrimination.
Oh, freedom from.
Yep.
Okay. Because of their gender ideology?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would think that the U.S. Constitution would already cover that, wouldn't it?
You would think.
I mean, a person, unless you're dealing with the violation of another person's rights, should not be hired or fired based on their gender ideology, or any ideology for that matter.
So the statement of purpose of this one reads, this legislation adds the words, quote, sexual orientation and, quote, gender identity to the Idaho Human Rights Act, provides definitions for these terms, and amends the stated purpose of the act consistent with the legislation's other amendments.
Yeah, see, that sounds
Just
like
creating other categories.
Yeah, that sounds like a kind of a... Now, this one here, the first line of this bill, H 421, it says this: in human beings, there are 2 and only 2 sexes, male and female. Every individual is either male or female. An individual's sex can be observed or clinically verified at or before birth. Rare disorders of sexual development are not exceptions to the binary nature of sex. In no case is an individual's sex determined by stipulation or self-identification. There is increasing confusion about the definition of sex as a biological truth and its relationship to concepts and terms, including but not limited to gender, gender identity, gender role, gender expression, and experienced gender. Confusion and ambiguity surrounding the definitions of sex, male, female, and related terms can hinder individual efforts to enjoy equal treatment under the law. Legal equality of the 2 sexes does not imply that the sexes are identical to each other or are the same in every respect. With respect to the 2 sexes, separate facilities, housing, or sleeping arrangements, or sports teams, programs, or leagues established because of or organized according to physical differences between the sexes does not constitute unequal treatment under the law. Physical differences between male and female are enduring, and the two sexes are not fungible.
That's pretty.
This is a great bill.
That's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, this is a great bill. This pretty much eliminates all the confusion that could be had for that. Yeah, it pretty much states that there are two sexes. We will have locker rooms that are male and female, and you fall within one of those two definitions. Whether you feel like you do or not is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see if that passes, and then if it gets signed into law.
Yeah, I would be shocked if the governor signs that bill
That would
into
be
law.
a huge win.
I would be absolutely stunned if the governor signs that. I'd be shocked if it makes it through the Senate. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that would
It's going to meet a lot of opposition.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's even out of committee. To be honest with you,
Is it?
I don't know. Is it
Let me see. That one was which?
H 421
So as of the today,
received
it's-
from House, passed, filed, introduced, read first time.
State Affairs
So it's in the is it in the State Affairs
Committee.
Committee?
Currently.
It passed the House, so it's in the Senate. It's in committee in the Senate.
Yeah.
Can it be tabled in the Senate like it can in the House?
I don't know.
That'd
I would
interesting.
imagine.
Probably. I would
Probably
think so.
more so in the Senate than the House.
Yeah. Let's see. Who was opposed to this bill? Birch, Burns, Chew. It's weird because it's cutting off some of this in my
Yeah.
on my phone. It's not set up for
Yeah. Why
mobile.
Wonder why it does that.
It's not set
Oh,
up
it's
for
not
mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's set up for website.
Go
Go landscape.
landscape, and it'll.
Oh, there you go. Good job, Greg. Man, you're so smart.
I'm so techie.
You technocrat, you.
Turn your
Burns,
Phone
Chew,
sideways.
Gallivis, Gannon, Garner, Green, Matthias, Nash, Stinson, Necochia, Nelson, Roberts, Rubel, Sauter. There's Dixon, Durant, Crane.
Looks like all of our local.
There's Hawkins. Yep. There's Scott. Yeah, we're good. Our guys were in
They're
there.
pretty overwhelming.
Past
for
54
eyes.
to 14. now.
55-14 with 2 not being there. So that'd be good. I'd like to see that one go through because we need that bad. What are some of the other ones? Sexual orientation, gender identity, the Senate. The Senate really addressed this a lot, it seems like. And I would imagine that their views are going to be a bit more liberal. Which one did you read? Which one were you looking at?
Me?
Yeah. 1237?
Let me get back up there.
That one was,
Yes.
yeah,
I
that
think
was
that is it.
that was the one that related to amends the existing law to provide freedom from discrimination because of sexual orientation or gender identity.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to run actually opposed to what I just read because it actually recognizes gender identity, which the bill that I just read does not.
It's not.
Right.
Well, that's going to be a fight.
I think there's also going to be fights over these other two, the diversity statements required for higher education employment, which I didn't even know that was a thing.
Adds to existing law to prohibit institutions of higher education from requiring diversity statements as a condition of employment or admission. What is a diversity statement? The bill will make clear Idaho's state policy that hiring and admissions decisions must be made on merit. This bill will also guarantee that hiring and admissions decisions made by state agencies, including public colleges and universities, are not conditioned on a requirement that applicants submit or ascribe to a diversity statement. That's a good one. That's a good one. And then 1274 prohibits diversity statements, it looks like. So Senate Bill 1274 adds to existing law to prohibit institutions of higher education from requiring diversity statements as a condition for a so it's basically the same thing, just a little bit different. Including public colleges, universities. Yeah, so it just changes two different kind of institutions. So that's good. Getting some traction there other than that one that it looks like it's going to contradict. Because why would you need a bill that says that you can't? What did it say? 1237. I'm going to read it a little bit more now because that's going to be 1237. Amends existing law to provide that freedom from discrimination because of sexual and orientation or gender identity is a civil right. Why does that not make sense to me?
I'm still trying to go. Okay,
this legislation adds the words sexual orientation and gender identity to the Idaho Human Rights Act, provides definitions for these terms, and amends the state purpose of the act consisting with the legislation's other amendments. So basically, you can't discriminate against someone based on sexual orientation or gender identity. I mean, sexual orientation, maybe gender identity. I don't know. I mean, if I'm an employer and I've got a person who's a boy that thinks they're a girl, I don't want to hire them.
Are churches bound by that currently?
No, that would be a violation of our constitutional rights.
Yeah. I know it would on our side, but as far as the law is concerned, I don't know if they make exceptions for houses of faith.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You could try, like they could try to file a suit or whatever the case may be, but it would be dismissed by the state attorney's office because it's not prosecutable.
Mm-hmm.
You can't force a person to violate their own constitutional rights so that your rights are upheld. Yeah. So it would not go anywhere. So we're pretty protected from that kind of stuff. Doesn't mean that they won't try it though, which is why, you have to have policies in place to, watch after that stuff. But in any case, it looks like there's just a heap of stuff going on here. I mean, you got what's the concealed weapons thing on school property?
That basically allows teachers and other employees on site at schools who have it's either enhanced or concealed weapon. I think it's the enhanced concealed weapons permit to allow to carry on school.
Okay, so as long as they have the enhanced concealed.
Yeah.
The Idaho enhanced.
And the other one is for colleges.
Okay. And then what's the immunity one? Employer firearms. What's that?
That
1275
holds the I think it gives immunity to employers who allow their employees to carry.
Oh, okay. So if the church allowed their employees to carry concealed, it would provide us immunity for prosecution because they carried.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So that's kind of an expansion.
That's a good one.
Expansion of gun rights in Idaho. It's interesting.
Yeah, because there was a lot of people that were afraid that there was going to be some gun legislation that was going to be trying to creep in, but it looks like quite the opposite. Looks like there's an expansion of our overall kind of gun rights as far as Idaho is concerned.
At least in Idaho,
protection of those rights.
Yep.
Doesn't really expand our rights, but protects us.
That's well put. Yeah, you're right. National security, compact border security. What is that?
These were pretty interesting. Let's see, that's House 460.
We'll cover these and then we'll do last words because I think we're running up against it. What time? What's our time at?
What? Really?
Yeah, it doesn't take long, man. There's so much here.
Okay, so
you could not cover it all in a month.
Oh no.
This adds to existing law to authorize the governor to develop and execute an interstate compact for border security, to provide that congressional approval shall not be required, and to require certain provisions be included in an interstate compact.
Nice. So the signing of that letter with Governor Abbott, for instance, would not require congressional oversight. Yeah, that's good.
Lets the states partner together to protect the border.
Yeah, and it looks like House Bill 6 was to support Texas.
Let's see, that was a resolution, right?
It's House Resolution 6.
Yeah.
So it's basically just a resolution to support Texas in its defense of its border.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is Senate Bill 1252, Defend the Guard Act? Must have something to do with our National Guard, huh?
Yeah. That one is adds to existing law to establish the Defend the Guard Act, which you have to look at the statement of purpose to unpack that a little bit. Embodies the intent of our founding fathers and follows the principles and provisions contained in the U.S. Constitution, etc., has exclusive power to declare war under the U.S. Constitution. The federal executive branch has exceeded its constitutional authority by calling up the state components of the National Guard in what are really war-fighting operations without a congressional declaration of war. The men and women of the Idaho National Guard must not be called into active duty combat operations on foreign soil unless there has been a congressional declaration of war.
Oh, so it prevents Biden from, by executive order, sending National Guard troops over to, say, for instance, Iran.
Yeah.
That's great.
With no declaration of war.
Yeah, that needs a congressional declaration of war.
This has been an area that needed some work for a long time.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Because we haven't declared a war since which? Korea? I think it was Korea or Vietnam.
I have no idea.
One of those.
I have no idea.
And everything since has just been
executive order.
Fudging.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of public health stuff too. So health districts, mask mandate prohibitions, an opt-in for the immunization registry, a board to report on maternal mortality, exemptions for immunizations, another bill from the House for prohibition of mask mandates, a Senate bill for patient medical rights. What's that?
I think that was the one that establishes caregivers as like default having rights to make decisions for patients.
Oh, gotcha.
In serious conditions.
I gotcha.
So they need not necessarily be related blood relatives, but, by virtue of their having been caregivers for years, for whatever reason, gives them the right to help make decisions for the patients.
Right. So, man, there's a lot of really important stuff on here, but I think probably one of the most important ones on here, Ken, if you want to look at it, is Senate Bill 1286.
This one is a biggie.
This is a biggie right here. I think that we should probably close out our show with this one because this one's very serious.
Yes, it is.
Senate Bill 1286
adds to existing law to prohibit homeowners associations from taking any action to require grass lawns.
That's horrible.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, your esteemed legislators are battling it out
with the homeowners
over grass lawns.
The homeowners associations. They're like, no, HOA. I wonder how many of those in the legislature are in homeowners associations. This might be a conflict of interest, actually. Only those that are not in homeowners associations can vote.
In a state election?
What other kind of lawn would you have?
Synthetic.
Yeah.
AI lawn?
AI lawn. Yeah, concrete painted.
AstroTurf?
Well, in some parts of the country,
you can have rock.
They kind of eschew grass for like gravel or rock.
Yeah. Like in Arizona, that's pretty popular in Arizona.
Yeah.
The rock
we know
lawns.
somebody who has one of those, right?
Yeah.
Love you, Roger.
That may not be a bad idea.
No, it's not a bad idea.
You never have to cut
Saves
it.
water,
Saves water.
saves methane.
Yeah. All you got to do is spray dangerous chemicals into the ground to kill the weeds every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I'm all for it.
You go out there with your weed burner.
Yeah, you could go out there and just burn it.
Burn it.
You know? Yeah.
And then watch the
Torch 'em.
rocks explode if you hold it on one too long.
Start a wildfire.
Do it right after a rainstorm. It's fun.
There's a lot there. And so we're providing the link. You could use that in the description of this podcast to see the list of bills. This is just kind of a summary. And really all we're doing is it's kind of letting you know like what's out there on the surface. I'm sure that some of our area kind of reporting agencies are going to be reporting on this. You'll probably see some of it on Athol News and Alert, Bushnell Report, the political chat spaces, some of the other news media sources. You'll see that link also appear. But, I think the important thing is to actually go through and follow it and look at it and read it, because you might be pleasantly surprised with a lot of the things that are coming out this legislative session.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that stuff gets approved or not, I mean, it's still got to go through a long process, a lot of this stuff. But we'll see. And then if you have one or more that you support, call your House, call your Senate. I know that in our district, Heather and Dale
Hawkins
are more than happy to receive your information.
Yes.
They're always willing to listen and even respond to any comments or questions that you might have. Bear in mind that they are in session, so they're really busy. But yeah, find out who your representatives are, and contact them and let them know which ones you support, which ones that you don't support, which ones that you're have concerns about. They may even be able to answer some of your questions. And so you can get that information. So that will also be on that link and to that page in the description of this episode. So you can follow that through and get that information. The most dangerous thing in our society is a properly informed public. It's the most important. That's the most dangerous thing for any kind of agenda or oligarchy or conspiracy or whatever, is an informed public. So make sure that you go and do your research. Don't, and when I say do your research, I don't mean go on YouTube or Facebook and listen to some person's like us. Don't listen to our podcast and think, oh, well, I know everything I need to know about that bill. No, you don't.
We don't.
Go on and read it and study it and learn for yourself. Greg, why don't you read 2 Peter chapter 1, 2-4 for us?
May grace and peace be multiplied to you in the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord. His divine power has granted to us all things that pertain to life and godliness, through the knowledge of him who called us to his own glory and excellence, by which he has granted to us his precious and very great promises, so that through them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in the world because of sinful desire.
Amen. Good to know that in the midst of all this corruption, that we have escaped it already. Yes. We may suffer through some of it, but ultimately we have escaped it. And that's really, really good news. Ken, do you have any last words?
Well, I put that reference in because everywhere you go and everybody you talk to, if you talk to them for more than just a few minutes, you'll discover that they are experiencing a level of anxiety, worry, fear over the things that are going on in our world. And we know from the last book in the book that it's going to be that way in the end, and it's going to escalate and it's going to increase. And so as believers, we need to seek refuge in the peace that passes understanding. And just grasp onto that grace and peace that he offers us.
Yeah.
And live separate from the world in the sense that we should not be shaken by these things that are coming up in our culture and in our society. And instead, we need to link together as brothers and sisters around our local faith family and live lives of faith, that we walk by faith and not by sight.
Amen. Amen to that. That's good.
Just a mini sermon there.
Yeah. How do you follow that, Greg? You got any last words?
I defer to you. No. I do. There are 401 bills in the Idaho legislature this year. There is, in reality, I don't think any way they're going to get through all of those.
Mm-mm.
And
well, not all of them will actually come out of committee or whatever.
Right. So we're asking you to go out and look at each one of those, read through them, know what they say, and that's a tall order.
Yeah.
And some of you can do that. Some of you have the time to do that. Some of you don't. But as Chris was encouraging you to do so. Now, with that said, you can tap into our local legislators. We had mentioned Heather and Scott Herndon and a couple others.
Bill.
And you can go to their websites and you can get some good insight into these different bills.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're involved in them in any way, shape, or form, that's probably a good place to start. Maybe even pique your interest a little bit into politics. I know that when I go to their websites and start looking around, I start to realize the importance of being involved.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do that, then all you're going to do is you're going to have hallway conversations with people, and it will amount to pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
So get out there, do your homework. It's a voting year. Be informed as best you can.
Yeah, and you don't even have to read all of them.
No.
I mean, if you just scan through these, your family is probably being personally impacted by one or two or maybe three of these issues
Right.
that are important to you.
Right.
Pick those two or three, find out what the bill's about, and voice your opinion.
Right.
And you will have done.
And if you're on
your
a
due
website
diligence.
to one of the legislators, you can do it right there. Boom. You can.
Also, if you would like to know how we have categorized these, like you might be a person out there that thinks to yourself, well, I really want to find out and support the ones that are related to gender, pornography, children, and, abortion, perhaps. Then I would say, shoot us an email, and we'll send you just the short list that we have of the topics on the bills that are related to those topics, so that you can have an easier time of saying, well, I really want to make sure I support the ones about gender. And then you could call up your representative and say, look, I support H so-and-so, H so-and-so, H so-and-so, and Senate so-and-so, or whatever. And then that'll give your representative the ammunition that they need to say, look, my constituents, they want this. And so, I'd encourage you to do that as well.
We kind of lumped them in kind of loose categories, but on the legislature website, you can also view the legislation list by subject.
Yeah, which is super helpful.
It's really granular and broken down, but that is also a good place to find, for example, all of the bills related to agriculture or alcohol. Yeah, it's so there's resources there.
And
you
then
can find it.
The other thing I would say is actually do the calling, like actually get involved. It's important that believers particularly are invested in the political process. If we do not engage with the political process, our church will never be that church that is political in its services. We don't promote that in our services. We promote Christ in our services. But we do have a focus on politics when it comes to external things like our podcast and things of that nature. And we have to be engaged in that, because if we're not engaged in that, then we become victims of our own complacency. And we have a system in place that requires us to be involved. And so if we're going to be obedient to our servants, or we're going to be obedient to our masters, and our masters being our documentation, then we need to be involved in the process and support the morality that we support, because politics is always downstream of morality.
Yeah.
And so I would say be involved. Don't be afraid to be involved. And if someone tells you that you shouldn't be involved because you're a Christian, tell them that you disrespect or that you respectfully disagree with them and continue to be involved anyways.
And look at how many times Jesus Christ himself engaged the political leaders.
Right. Quite often. Quite often.
And never forget that a lot of blood was shed to give you that right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is not rebellion. It is not sedition. It is not treason. It is you following the mandates that your founding documents have given you to operate as a citizen of this great nation and this great state and this great county and whatever county that you happen to be in Idaho. It's you have to be involved. So I'd say that, make sure that you're doing that. Well, that about does it for us today. As always, thank you for joining us. If you have a question or a comment or an idea for an episode, send us an email at 3p@atholbaptistchurch.org, and Ken will gladly receive your email.
Waiting to hear from you.
He's just excited, waiting with bated breath.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Here's the good news: if your idea gets used on the show, you could be the proud recipient of the now world famous 3P coffee mug, and there are talks happening right now about the possibility of a 3P t-shirt. Just saying.
Hey.
Calm down, everybody. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And also, thank you to Athol Baptist Church and its members for their support of this ministry. And again, thank you for listening. Until next time, remember the Great Commission. Go into all the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples who can do the same. And with that, we are out.